so welcome to part 2, series 5, playing over changes. Now we're playing at the moment so far over the G minor in this sequence. There will be a C minor coming, which we're going to be talking about in due course. But so far we've combined ourselves to playing our G minor pentatonic and our F major scale. Now the major scale we've used so far is up here at 5th position. It's based around a C shape, in fact. Okay, we're trying to get used to the idea of that sound within the G minor. Now, what I'm going to do in this particular episode, I'm not going to go too far too soon. That's very, very important. We don't overstretch ourselves. But I'm going to have a look at another fingering of the F scale, which covers a slightly different area of the minor pentatonic. So far when we talked about the minor pentatonic, there's a tendency to say, well, this is minor pentatonic, that's the scale, never the twain shall meet, or even if they do, we're thinking different positions and things. Well, this next fingering is actually very useful because it runs straight through the G minor pentatonic. So we're going to play that starting on the 6th string at the 1st fret. There's going to be a little graphic of this fingering coming up any moment, and it's a very slight stretching of positions here to achieve this scale. So when you're playing this, you really want to put your thumb behind your 2nd finger. Let's say you put your 2nd finger on the 6th string. Okay, so your thumb's right there. Okay, but a little bit behind if you will. Okay, behind the neck as in. Okay, so your thumb and your 2nd finger are next to each other. Little finger, that's a normal stretch. That's only 2 frets up. Okay, so your 1st finger is the one which is just going to be making a little bit of a movement. It's not very difficult, it's just like going like that. Okay, what you don't want to be doing is having your thumb back there and trying to reach with your little finger. It's going to be very awkward to do. Okay, so your hand, you could say, is in 2nd position, in other words covering a 4 fret area, starting from the 2nd fret and finishing at the 5th fret, but you just kind of borrowed a fret. So okay, so here's the fingering. Okay, and it'd be nice, since we're in G minor, to put that on the end, wouldn't it? Now, this fingering lends itself to a few different techniques, and before we get into that, I'm just going to give you a little example of how that would sound playing with our G minor. So as you can hear from that example, there's a couple of ways you can play the F scale. You can be very mechanical about it, and in a way that's important, obviously, if you're explaining something. And in that second example, I start to mess around with the scale a little bit. In other words, take some twists and turns. Now, I did a series on major scales and exercises, and a series of routines you can do just to get that flexibility into your scale. So the next logical step is to say to ourselves, well, okay, what if we combine the minor pentatonic and that major scale? Now, again, very important to realise that, just because you're playing a major scale, you haven't got to sit up straight and put a tie on and, pick every single note, and you're not allowed to hammer, snap, slide or anything else. Okay, very, very important. Just think to yourself, well, I've got these 3 notes here, let's say, on the 2nd string. Okay, well, so I've used a little bit of my scale. There's a little bit of my pentatonic, complete with the passing note. It's also possible to say to myself, well, I could use a couple of other phrases, and here's another example. I put a bend in. Okay, so this all makes the whole thing a lot more lyrical. So here's a little example of how some of those ideas sound when we put in the odd bent strings and we try and combine those sounds together, because that's what this is about. You don't want to be just playing, finding this new magic scale you can use, and because you got a bit bored with the old one, and then you're going to probably get a bit bored with this if you overdo it. So it's about mixing the two together. So here's a little example of what that would sound like. So here I'm starting to run around the scale a little bit more. It's interesting to note this 3. It's quite easy to play triplets. In other words, just get some flexibility into what you're doing with the scale. Now there's one other thing I want to add in this video, and it's very, very important, just to think to yourself, well, hang on, I've already played this. Well, I've got this here. Okay, that's pentatonic. Could I not use this as well? Okay, this is really useful, because now we have something Van Halen used to use a lot, actually, with these sort of symmetrical fingerings. So what I mean by that is we've got the same thing here. We've got 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. There's loads of stuff you can do with that. Equally, it's all on the table there to be used. Slides, hammers, snaps, all the rest of it. Anyway, okay, so that's about it for this particular video. So in the next one, we're going to be talking about what happens when the C minor comes along. Okay, but for now, that's all. So thanks very much for watching. Please press the subscribe button, and bye for now.